Hey guys, welcome back. Today's my last day in the desert, so I just checked out and thought I should give you a next update before I'm off to Peru. So what happened in the last week? I flew to Antofagasta from Puerto Varas, where I did my last video. Fortunately, this time everything went well and I arrived there on time. Everything was perfectly fine. Yeah, fingers crossed that it's gonna be the same today. And then I spent 2 nights in Antofagasta, which is a mining city, an old mining city, and still is, and they still have mines there. Yeah, but other than that, it was not too interesting. It had like a nice harbor and a modern mall. I just walked around the city, looked at it, but yeah, it was not too special. It seemed very worn down and poor, although it is kind of a wealthy city in Chile. So the last time I was at this airport, it was involuntarily in the middle of the night, and I was pretty tired because we landed here instead of in Castro. So let's hope that this is going to be a better experience. Flight number 2. Sunday, I then took a bus to Calama, and from there I had to take another bus to San Pedro de Atacama, which also took me a few hours. But San Pedro de Atacama is probably the most famous tourist place here in Chile. It's in the middle of the desert, but it's like a great starting point to do different tours here in the Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert is the driest desert in the world, except of Antarctica, but somehow they don't count that. Yeah, but nonetheless, San Pedro is like, it's a tourist town with no real streets, just sandy streets and nice little white buildings. And they have a lot of tourist agencies here. Tour agencies where you can like book different tours throughout the desert. I did 6 of those in the last week, and it was just very, very different than Puerto Varas and Chile, but it was very nice as well. First tour that I did was Vale De La Luna, so the Valley of the Moon, where we just drove through this valley. They have a giant sand dune which we walked up. They have the 3 Marias, they call it. It's like just a rock formation. And last but not least, of course, the most famous picture probably here is Vale De La Luna at sunset, so that's what we did as well. And in the evening, I did an Astro Tour, meaning they took us out of San Pedro, where there was no light pollution, and we had 2 or 3 hours to look at the stars. We had a guide who showed us some star constellations, and we had a big telescope that we could look through. So that was quite nice, and then he took some pictures, and I could also take some pictures of the stars, which was very impressive. I really liked that. Next day was Ruta de Salares, so the route of the salt flats. That was like a 5 or 6 hour tour, and we just drove along different salt flats around here. But it was very windy and very cold. It was freezing. We had breakfast at the volcano that they have here. They have a few volcanoes here, but we had breakfast at the closest one to San Pedro, which is a special place to have breakfast. And we saw some flamingos and some vicunas. That's what the most common animals here are called. It's winter season, so there are not too many animals. In summer, there are a lot more. Very windy, so there was no tour possible at all. So I just walked around here a bit, stayed in the city, had a relaxed day. That was nice as well, because the next day I had to get up at like 3 o'clock, and this tour that I did started at 4 to Geysers del Tatsu. So they were geysers on like 4,500 meters of altitude, which makes them the highest geysers in the world. And the 3rd biggest, I think, after the ones in Yellowstone National Park and in Iceland. That was so nice. It was, again, freezing cold, but it was very impressive to see all these geysers shooting up. That was pretty nice. And after that, we had breakfast at a Geyser Blanco. We were almost alone. And it was, I think, one of the best places I've ever had breakfast in. And the breakfast, of course, was delicious as well. They often make you breakfast and or lunch in these tours. Pretty cold up here, but definitely worth it. Afternoon, I then visited Laguna Baltinache, which are actually 7 lagoons, and in the last one you can swim in, and it's like, it's so salty that you just float on top. And the water was cold, but it was very nice, and you were just covered in salt. After that, it's kind of hard to get that off, but that was a nice experience as well. And on the way back, we then had at sunset some pisco sour and some snacks, so that was nice as well. So I just went swimming in that lagoon. It's freezing, it's like 10 degrees, but it's nice because you can just float on top. But now I'm covered in salt. Let's see if I can get that off. This tour I did here was yesterday. It was a full day tour. We started out and visited the Tropic of Capricorn, so that's basically where the sun is on straight up on top at noon in summer. So we visited the Tropic of Capricorn, had breakfast there again, which was pretty nice. After breakfast, we drove to Altiplanic lagoons. So there are two very nice lagoons here. They're called Miscanti and Miniques. They're both right next to each other. They basically were one lagoon once, but now they're separated because of the volcanic eruption. Yeah, and there are two volcanoes that have the same name as the lagoons. There were kind of birds to be watched, and vicuñas again, which was pretty nice, but it's cold again. Two lagoons at like 4,000 altitude. It's pretty nice, pretty windy as well. But the most windy party was Piedras Rojas, so the red stones, which we visited after these two lagoons, and it was so windy. It literally almost blew me away. So that was just crazy. But it was so nice again. You have these red rocks, then volcanoes in the background, and hot water running by. You're not even allowed to touch that. Yeah, it was crazy windy, but very nice. Yeah, and then we went back, had lunch with the tour, and visited a lagoon where they had flamingos, so that was very special as well. They had lots of flamingos that we could visit. So we're walking towards Piedras Rojas, which means the red rocks. The water looks pretty nice, but it's very pretty cool. We searched a place with less wind to have lunch. So this is where we are now, and this is where we're going to have lunch. In this valley. Pretty hungry as well.
Taza, miel, quizás un poco de aceite. Aquí sí había agua.
I'm gonna have to spend 5 or 6 hours here in San Pedro. I'm gonna grab something to eat and to drink. Then I have an airport transfer to the airport. And my flight is at 8 something. But I have 2 stops. I have to fly to Santiago, from Santiago to Lima, and then from Lima to Cusco. So I'll arrive tomorrow morning or something. And then I'm gonna, spend 2 months in Peru, which is gonna be exciting. And my classes start on Monday again. So, new chapter. See you in Peru.